Hey everyone, Dom here, welcome back to the channel, and it's time to wrap up one month and start afresh with a new month. So let's go find out what happened in September and what I've got in store for October. Well, those months, September and October, are getting us towards the end of 2021, and I think I might be getting about as far as I can go with this channel without investing in some lighting, because that British winter is definitely getting here. Well, I mean, to be honest, if you live in Britain, you probably know that the British winter kind of overlaps with the summer. We don't really do autumn, it's just kind of straight out of one and into the other most of the times. But it's pretty dark and dreary in the afternoons at the moment. We're at 2:30, I'm about to go on the school run in half an hour to pick up my daughter, and it's tipping it down with rain outside. So that's great, that's just typical British weather for you, I guess. The stories you hear are pretty much true. In terms of reading though, September for me wasn't a great month. I've had a lot on my plate just recently. A few months ago I quit my job for a new beginning, and since then I've been setting myself up as a self-employed proofreader, trying to get a business up and running, working for myself, doing freelance work, so there's a lot of energy that I need to put into that. And it's maybe natural that I've found that's given me less time for actual reading for pleasure. So the reading stats for September aren't where I wanted them to be, but that's just one of these things that you have to deal with when life throws things at you. So as with last month's wrap up, I'll start again with some stats, and that'll be my kind of new norm going forward for these monthly changeovers. So there was only 2 books that I managed to read to completion in September. So as I say, a really low month, and actually, although I have slowed down a little bit in the past few months with this new job, this new career that I'm building for myself, it is still a lower month than I have experienced for quite a while. So I did read 2 books completely, and I'm just over halfway through a third book, but I don't count that until I've actually finished it. I don't actually update my progress until I've actually finished a book. So all of the pages that I've read in this current book will essentially roll over to October when we're looking at the stats as I pull them from Goodreads and from my own Excel spreadsheet. So in terms of the actual books themselves, the 2 that I've finished had a total of 1,089 pages, which is an average page count of 544, so they are still quite sizable, I guess, as individual books. And in terms of quality, it was definitely a good month because the average rating for these 2 books is 4, as that's the score that I gave both of them individually. For the year to date, we're on 15,408 pages for completed books at an average of 514 pages per book. And the average rating has crept up a little bit with those 2 4-star reads and is now sitting at 3.73. So overall we are still doing pretty good, although I am still waiting for that next 5-star read. And sitting at the bottom of the stats there, you can see it's been 97 days since my last 5-star read, which was Saint's Blood by Sebastien de Castell. In terms of the series that I've had a look at this year, I have amended the stats a little bit. I've added a new category in for ongoing series, because previously when I first kind of put together this little stats roundup, I wasn't including series that I was in the middle of. So not only am I talking series like A Song of Ice and Fire, where I'm up to date in the series in terms of what's been released so far, and I'm just waiting and waiting for another book to come out, but also I'm talking about new releases, new series that have started, where I've read the first book and that's actually all that's out so far. So in comparison to my stats roundup for last month, the series that I've started has increased because I've included things like Shadow of the Gods as book 1 of Bloodsworn, The Black Tongue Thief as book 1 of the Black Tongue series, The Last Watch, book 1 of The Divide, and there's a couple of others in there as well. So overall, series that I've started, taking that into effect, is 12 for this year. DNFs, there's no new DNFs, that's sitting solid at 4, and the series that I've finished this year so far is also at 4. So again, with that extra criteria taken into effect, there are 8 series that I'm reading that I'm actually up to date with. I've read all of the books that have been published so far, and that gives me a total of 24 series that I can say I'm in the middle of, because that includes those additional titles that I had kind of overlooked when I did these stats previously. So in terms of the actual books themselves that I read, the first book for September was one that I was really looking forward to. It was an advanced review copy of The Seventh Cadence by Jim Wilburn. Now, the publisher Emergent Realms actually contacted me directly and offered me this book because looking at the reviews that I've done, they said that this should be right up my street. And do you know what? They'd done their research and they were bang on, because I really liked this book. The cover, first of all, is really, really pretty. I love those vibrant blues, and who likes fantasy but doesn't like a dragon on the cover? I mean, come on. I will have a dedicated review for The Seventh Cadence on Friday, which is the date the book is actually released. I've been asked to hold my review until the release date. Otherwise, I probably would have had this out a couple of weeks ago, so you can get an idea of the book before it actually comes out. But I definitely recommend this one. I really liked it, had some really interesting ideas. Obviously some areas for improvement, but you get that with any book, let alone any debut book. But I thought this was a really solid read, and I'm really excited actually to continue with this series, the Continua Chronicles, because overall it was just a good time to be had. So I was really pleased that I got to read this book, but obviously I'm more pleased that I actually really enjoyed it, because it just hit a lot of the criteria that I look for in a fantasy, and the signs are there that this could be a really good overall series. So I'm hopeful that we'll see the follow-up books coming out at a good regular interval. I don't know how long this series is. I don't think it's a trilogy. I think I've heard 4 or 5 books are in the plan, so we'll see how that goes. But if you get the opportunity, definitely recommend The Seventh Cadence. From Friday, look out for my review where I'll go into it in a lot more detail. The ebook that I read though was 733 pages, so it's the bulk of the reading that I did for the 2 finished books that I had for September. Gave it 4 stars, as I say, and overall in my weighted scale that I do on my reviews, it pulled out at a 75%, which is a really good score for both a debut and an opening book in a series. That put it at equal 35th place in my overall Hall of Fame, which is in some pretty good company. And although 35 doesn't sound very high, it is quite a sizable list by now, and 35 is definitely towards the upper portion of it. Once I read The Seventh Cadence, I decided that I wanted something that I knew I was going to enjoy, because the next book that I had planned was Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie. I don't think I was quite ready for it at the point that I finished The Seventh Cadence. So I went back into a series that I really liked the opening book for, which was Threadlight by Zach Argyle, and I read Stones of Light. So this was 352 pages, and it was another 4-star read. I gave the first book in the series 4 stars as well, because they were both really great books. This one I have already published my dedicated review. I'll link it in the cards up in the top corner. Go check it out if you haven't already seen it. But I really like this series, and I said in there, I believe, that all book 3 needs to do pretty much is be released and let me read it, and I am very certain that this series will become part of my top 10 fantasy series. It is that good. I'm that confident that book 3 is going to kind of stick the landing. Even if it's not quite as good as the first 2 books, it will still be enough to get this series into my top 10. So that is some really, really high praise for Zach Argyle and for this series. Stones of Light, in terms of ratings, I said I gave it 4 stars. In the weighted scale it came out at 81%, which is awesome, and that put it at equal 17th on that long list, making up my Hall of Fame. So 2 thoroughly enjoyable books, really well scoring in both the star rating and in my weighted scale. So in terms of the quality, as I said, I think I had a really good September, even though I didn't get nearly as much reading time as I wanted, and I wasn't able to get a really good run at any of the books that I was reading. It was kind of a little bit of fits and starts, reading for short periods rather than being able to get some proper quality reading time in. So for October, that's what I'm hoping to fix first off, although October is going to have its own challenges as well. And then, as I mentioned, the other book, the other kind of commitment book that I had for September is Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie, and I've been reading that for the past week and a half, 2 weeks, and again I've just not been able to get a good run at it, and because I've only been reading for short periods at a time, I've only been able to get sort of a chapter at a time done, pretty much at the most. It's been rare in the last few weeks that I've been able to actually read a good couple of chapters in one sitting. So that's disappointing, but it's not the fault of the book, it's just those other factors in life at the moment. I am enjoying Best Served Cold. I am currently just over halfway through this one. I'm on about page 360 and there's about 300 left to go, so about 55% of the way through the book. I am enjoying it. I do like this book. I have had a couple of little bits that I'm not too keen on. I did mention on Discord in a conversation earlier on that this guy, he writes some of the most cringy sex scenes I've ever experienced. Although actually, as I did caveat in that discussion, I've not really read a lot of sex scenes in the fantasy books that I read, and if they're anything like Joe Abercrombie's, I'm glad of that, because they're not very good at all. They are very uncomfortable kind of reading, and that might be the intent, but it just doesn't work for me. So whenever they come up and you've got squelch squelch as part of your commentary, what are we doing? Anyway, this one I will be finishing as my first book in October, because I only read one book at a time, so I'm going to continue ploughing on through this one and hopefully get it finished. With a good run over the weekend, within a few days of October, I'll be finishing with this one and starting on my actual October reads. So what are those October reads going to be? As I've said previously, this is kind of a preview for the new month. It's not going to be these are the books that I'm going to read. I decided a couple of months ago that a TBR, a solid TBR, won't work for me being a mood reader. So I will go down the route of kind of highlighting some things that I might get round to reading and that I might want to read. But ultimately, as a mood reader, the book that's going to win each time I finish a book and go to pick up the next one, it's just going to be whatever most kind of floats my boat at the time. What am I most interested in at the time? So I've already decided that one of those, and I think the next book that I'm going to read after I finish Best Served Cold, I'm going to go back into, again, a series that I've started and that I'm really enjoying, and that's going to be threatening for a place on my top 10 of fantasy when I do eventually finish it. So this is the Lacanius trilogy by James Islington, and I'm going to read book 2, which is An Echo of Things to Come. I think that's book 2 and not book 3, but yeah, An Echo of Things to Come. I really enjoyed the first book. I know I say I really enjoyed this book way too much, but I did have a really good time reading Shadow of What Was Lost. Again, this is one that I've done a dedicated review for. I'll link in the cards above for you to check out at your leisure. Once I've finished that, I'm not sure. I've got a few ideas of what I will hopefully be looking at reading, but I'm not sure what's going to come out on top. One of the options is a sci-fi. I've said before, I'm not setting any targets for reading sci-fi because fantasy is my jam, but I will read the occasional sci-fi if it's one that really interests me. One that I was sent recently by Wilbur Seymour, who is a self-published author. He's a member of the Wizardly Duo Discord, and we had a bit of a chat because his book, Kuiper Station, sounded quite interesting, and he sent me this one to read. So I really like the cover on that one. I love the colours on there. It looks interesting, it sounds interesting, so I might be picking this one up as one of my October reads. If I do enjoy it, I've also got the follow-up, Orion Citadel, which again has got a really nice, interesting cover to it. And then book 3 in this Kuiper series is Cherry Blossom. A little bit devoid of the colour on that one, but hopefully I will enjoy it. And these ones they're not very thick, so hopefully if they do go down well, they'll be quite quick reads as well, and that will hopefully help out with some of the reading pace that I've been having recently. And then the other plan that I've got is to start some new series and start adding them to that list in the stats at the top of this video. So yesterday, at the time of filming, I put up a post in the Wizardly Duo Discord asking for help, asking for people to give their opinions on what I should read next, which I know can be a dangerous thing as a mood reader, but I've given a bit of criteria for how this is going to work. So one of my plans for an upcoming video is I'm going to take a selection of the series that I want to read. Again, link in the cards for the video when I spoke about all of these. Add a little bit too much length, but I'm going to take 5 of those opening books from those series, and I'm going to read the first chapter of all of them and then speak about my thoughts on those opening chapters. At the end of the video, I will then make a decision. Hopefully I'll make it at the end of the video anyway. I will make a decision over which of those books I'm going to continue with as my next read. Hopefully I will have 5 books that I know that I'm going to enjoy based on the strength, hopefully, of the opening chapters, but we'll see how it goes. The one thing that is kind of maybe a bit dangerous with that is if the opening chapter doesn't really sing to me, will I want to pick up that book again and give it another shot? Whereas if I'm reading a book and the opening chapter doesn't sing to me, I'm going to carry on anyway, because I don't really DNF books, and I certainly wouldn't DNF a book on the strength of one single chapter. It might make me a bit more nervous about picking up a book to read if I have already read and not enjoyed that first chapter though, so we'll see how that goes. I don't know when I'm going to film this video because I will do it basically when I've finished the books that I'm reading at that point, because I'll go straight into reading the kind of winner of this little reading competition. So I'm going to leave the votes open in the Discord channel. If you want to and you've got the access to, go and put your name in the hat for a particular book or 2 or 3 books. There's no limit on the voting because I will be reading 5 of these and it's not just a case of picking your favourite. But at the moment, some of the options that are coming out on the top, we've got The Bone Ships by R.J. Parker, The Wolf of Oron-Yaro by K.S. Veloso, and We Ride the Storm by Devin Madsen. So 3 of the books that I've got on my shelves. There's another couple of books that are doing well as well, and the one that is currently winning is the one that I expected to win, so I'm pretty sure that I will be reading at least the opening chapter of Kings of the World by Nicholas Eames in October as well. So as far as the October reading goes, as I've said, I hope that it's going to be a better reading month than September, but there are other challenges in October as well. So it's my daughter's birthday on this coming Friday, the 8th of October, so obviously we've got plans in the works for that. And I've got the in-laws coming to visit. They haven't been down here for 2 years now. They live up in Scotland. They haven't been down to see us on the south coast of England for 2 years now because of COVID, but they're coming down for my daughter's birthday, so that's going to be great, spending time with them, and especially great for my daughter to see her grandparents again, although she did go up to Scotland to see them a few weeks ago. But that's going to be a great time, but it might cut into the reading time as well. So we'll see how that goes and how October pans out in general. But either way, I'm hoping that it's going to be a better reading month than September was. But in terms of the quality, hopefully it'll be just as good. And if it can be better than September, that'll be an absolute blast. So that's it anyway for my September review, my October preview. Hopefully you all had a good month as well. Let me know in the comments below how it went. Let me know what you're looking forward to in October as well. If you haven't already done so whilst you're down there, hit the like and subscribe buttons. I'll hopefully see you in another video soon, but as always, until then, take care of yourselves, read some good books. Bye for now.